All right, we've still got. Randy, would you like to lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. It's July 27th, 2020. Welcome to the Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. On my left is Commissioner Aaron Mays, who represents District 3, and on my right is Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2. I'm Bill Rippon, and I represent District 1. What's first on the agenda?
First item is item number 1, proclamations, presentations, Family Park Master Plan presentation, HTK Architects.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Laurent, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation. I won't speak long here. Today marks the kickoff of our Family Park Master Plan process, and I have Zach Sneathen with HTK Architects here who'd like to say a few words.
Good morning, Commissioner. Zach Sneathen, HTK Architects. I'm excited to represent the design team of HTK Architects, Landwork Studio, and Cook Platt and Strobel Engineers, who will be starting working with Parks and Rec staff and the community on beginning to develop the master plan for the what will be the future family park in southwest Topeka. Really today is that kickoff point. We've talked a lot about how do we kick off or how do we start this process in seeking meaningful input of providing community surveys and community interaction to really help formulate what that plan for the family park will be. The couple pieces of objectives that we have of this master plan is really looking at initial process of seeking community input and taking that input from the community, from stakeholders, and really from Parks and Rec staff to begin to develop some options and study some options that we'll consider or that will be considered for that. And then circling back around for feedback on those options. From that feedback from the community, from yourselves, from staff, from the stakeholders, really refining those options as we work towards developing a master plan that will have plans or strategies for implementation. For the ultimate goal really is to create a new destination park in Shawnee County comparable to that of Lake Shawnee and Gage Park. So a couple kind of over the next several months, we're today into July, 1st of August, really starting that kickoff process or that community engagement process. I'm here this morning to help kick that off and announce some links at the end that'll be some community surveys and information pages on the Parks and Rec website, as well as meeting tomorrow with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board in a similar discussion to really start to seek that input on the process and really help guide the efforts moving forward. We've also talked about, are there opportunities, can we find opportunities to do some appropriate face-to-face interactions, looking at pop-up type events that come alongside either other events or places in the community that are already happening and that are already have people attending. The first one is at the Midwest Health Aquatics Center on August 5th in the afternoon, and it'll be an opportunity. We'll have essentially a tent out there and a way and giving information out about the survey that'll be online, but also a way for people to interact with the design team and provide some input, some meaningful discussions on the project in an appropriate way. So we're looking at, that's the first one that we have scheduled. As we schedule others, we'll be building a calendar on the Parks and Rec website for this project that'll start to outline when those opportunities for those kind of pop-up events might happen. Once we've gotten this initial round feedback from this initial survey, we'll take that information and start to review and analyze that, and start to develop those concepts, working with Parks and Rec staff through a charrette process to really develop several concepts for consideration, and start to review and look at what those might look like, and come back to you guys with updates throughout the process that really share how the process is going, but also what we're hearing from the community and what some of these concepts might start to look like. Later in the fall, in October, after we've had some time to process that information and develop those concepts, we'll be going back out to the community in a similar fashion through surveys, online interactions, as well as pop-up events, to really start to seek feedback from the community on what some of those options might look like for the park. And from that feedback, we'll start to take that and then refine that into working towards a final concept that includes budget for it, implementation strategies, as well as the other documents that are kind of the deliverables for the master plan that really give the county and Parks and Rec a plan that they can work for towards implementing that park in the future. So towards the end of the year, into November, first part of December would really be the kind of the culmination of this process, coming back with a final plan that is kind of the preferred plan for that master plan, and being able to then, you guys would be able to then act on a direction that you choose to go with that. So really throughout that process, our goal with this is to really just stay in communication with you guys, stay in communication with the community. We've set up, through Parks and Rec, have set up a site on their news and information site within the Parks and Rec website for kind of a continual update, a home base for information related to this master plan, as well as with the kickoff today. It also kicks off the community, or a survey, seeking that initial input on the project. And it's a survey through SurveyMonkey. There's a link on up here on the screen, but also a link on the website for asking individuals in the community to complete the survey as well. So with that, again, it's just a kickoff this morning. We're excited about the process. Look forward to learning about what the community is interested in seeing in this park. Invite you all and everyone else here and then in the community to dig into the survey, provide some input. If we see you out at one of the pop-up events, that's also another good opportunity to provide some input to the process. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or.
Any questions?
None today.
Thank you very much, Zach.
Okay.
Kind of
Thank
excited
you.
to see this, excited to see this take off here. It's long awaited.
Yeah.
It's been a void in our park system for quite a while, having something on the west side, so I think this will be a very much appreciated project. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's next?
Item 2, unfinished business, discussion of capital improvement plan deferred from July 23rd.
Good morning, Betty Greiner, Director of Administrative Services. We're here to continue our discussion on the capital improvement plan. Jennifer will help us by handling the computer, and on your table there, I gave you a new spreadsheet that has highlighted the items that we had not addressed yet as of Monday. And on this spreadsheet, those are all highlighted also. The amounts are left blank because we had not made decisions on those. So would you like me to just take them one by one and go down the list?
I think
Okay.
that'd be a good idea.
Okay, well, we'll go back at the top, the DOC radio replacement. We talked about 2021 and 2022, and those amounts were taken off by the DOC, but we did not discuss the 2023. There was 114,200. And the next one down, the courthouse steam trap and air handling unit repairs and modernization for 2021 of 75,000. That was just, you said to wait on that one. The sheriff's fleet refresh was asking for 335 in 21, then 350, 350, and 390. The sheriff's uplift and stripe new vehicles of 72,000 in 2021. Then this office space, we didn't really discuss that, but that is just something the DA is wanting more office space, so we just put $1 in there so that this item can be on there. Then we have the DOC Annex security system upgrade. That they had marked for 30,000 for 2021 and 75,000 for 2022. That was also something you said to wait on. The courthouse air conditioner units for IT, 2022 was 50,000 and 2024 was 50,000. Then if we go on down, there was park system signage for 50,000 in 2025. I believe that's the first one that we hadn't discussed yet. Is that correct?
We also switched over the one for DOC that was up above, the DOC Annex security system.
Oh, I mentioned it.
Yes, but that one was never discussed.
That one wasn't discussed either. Okay, that's right. So let's go to the DOC Annex security system. It was on there, but we hadn't discussed it. And they were asking for 30,000 for 2021 and 75,000 for 2022. I believe, yes, Eve is here to discuss that if you have any questions.
Is there any questions?
No.
I don't think we have any on them.
Okay. Then let's go on down to park system signage, which is 50,000 in 2025. Would you like someone to speak on that? Do you have any questions on that?
All right, I don't have any. I don't see any.
Okay, the next one is park renovations, 5 to 8 parks, and that is $1.4 million each of the 5 years. Would you like someone to speak on that one?
If we could, just what exactly this is going to entail or propose to entail?
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation. So what I envision with this is that we would go in and do a complete evaluation of 5 to 8 parks, and it would depend in large part on the condition of those parks. So it could be upgraded playground equipment in parks that don't have it, new sidewalks. It really could be a myriad of projects depending on the state of the parks that we're evaluating at the time. It would be between 5 to 8 because that's what our master plan calls for us to do. So the 1.4 million is, you know, it's an arbitrary number, to be honest. I mean, do I think we could spend that much? Absolutely. Does it have to be that much? No. But it would be nice to have money set aside to do these upgrades on a yearly basis.
Okay.
Thoughts? Okay.
Well, Tim, how much is allocated to that kind of stuff through like your 3R fund?
Right.
And just out of your general budget?
Sure. Well, out of our general budget, we don't have any line items really for that sort of thing, for park upgrades. But our 3R budget, we get $500,000 annually, but it doesn't go strictly to parks. It goes to roads and parking lots and anything facilities, whatever we might need it for. So, but to answer your question, $500,000 from our 3R fund, but we also do use a lot of our operating fund to do these things as well.
Any other questions? Um, Do we usually have public comment on these?
Typically, if there was in the past, what we've done is when we get to the end, if we were going to have a motion to finalize, we would take public comment. But I don't know if there may be a brief, as a member of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, there may be a brief point that Mr. Ledbetter may want to make.
Okay, all right.
I can wait till the end, but I want to know when I get to speak. It's up to you.
Yeah, I just didn't know when.
Yeah.
You could talk right now, I
Well, I
suppose.
can just go ahead and get over with. Thank you. Thank you very much. Just to give you some background, these are my words only. I wasn't planning on speaking this early, but I'll just go ahead and jump in here. I've been on Parks and Rec Advisory for 4 years. I was originally part of the group that pushed to have a consolidation because I felt like we would have economies of scale, we'd have some savings, but more than that, I thought that the city residents deserve something back for their county taxes, i.e. Parks and Rec. That was a choice that was made by the community, and sorry. I'm trying to get used to all these rules. And we made a determination that we would back this and we would do it with contract between the parties, and specifically maintenance and upgrades of equipment were all part of that contract. At the beginning, when the two parks, and I really need to cover this, when the two parks were merged, because this was not covered in budget the other day, and I wanted to speak, but another member ran the clock. We had $18 million between the two departments. That was drawn down to $13 million by about 2014. It was very dramatic. Although I knew there was some savings to be made, I would have never dreamed that the county would have pulled down those numbers that severely because it absolutely cut into the bone of maintenance. Well, what Jim Martin was trying to say the other day was because we're very unique, we've got 2,000 acres to take care of, but we've got 157 roofs. We've got 30 to 40 restaurants. It's probably more than that. We've got miles and miles of bike trails that need to be maintained, and they weren't being maintained a few years ago till I got involved and others got involved, and we got $3 million for deferred maintenance. The problem is the number was, and it's not now, but it was $14 million. So as you take away that money over time, what you have is the first thing that went was maintenance and upgrades. And since Parks and Rec took over these parks, many neighborhood parks have had equipment removed and not replaced. So even that older equipment, kids had a lot of fun on, but somebody had a bright idea to remove it, even though we have a playground exception under tort law, and they were not replaced. Community or country club had more equipment than it does now. It has almost nothing. There's a lot of kids in that neighborhood. Seabrook, another large park, well, it's larger than that. That's 2 acres. I think Seabrook is 5 acres, and there's probably hundreds of kids in that surrounding half mile of that park, and almost no playground equipment. So on this particular item, what I'd like to see is that specifically you allocate at least $500,000 a year towards playground equipment so we can do some catch-up, because until last year, we had done no neighborhood parks in, I think, 8 years, well, 7 years, where this park equipment was replaced. Now, I know we're all talking about, well, some of us are talking about Family Park, and I know that that brought on a great reaction from the public of 4,000 signatures that had a lot of problems and heartburn. I understand you could call that a void at the west edge of the city, but I see voids in the city, in the middle, in different parks. And I am okay with a collaboration where we do both, but we cannot just leave the parks that Parks and Rec took over behind and not fix them, not upgrade them. And I'm going to say something else on this. This not only has a health problem or a health effect on our kids, because now they're not outdoors enough, and everybody complains about that. They want kids to get off the computers and get out and play. If you go down to Willow Park, it looks good. I specifically lobbied to make sure that that one had playground equipment. Austin Park was a disaster, and it's pretty well fixed. I have not checked the restrooms. I don't know what they did on that, but the rest of the park looks really good. But it takes money. We have to get caught up on what we have left behind. So I don't want to see these voids in our park system. The other thing that helps is not just to get the kids out and help their mental health, but help the parents' mental health. Kids need to play. And, you know, we let the golfers golf, but we told the kids not to play on the playgrounds. I still understand that one. But we have to have playground equipment for them to play on. Otherwise, the order's moot anyway. The second thing that I'd like you to think about with neighborhood parks is how much value that adds to a tax base. You will actually see people wanting to gravitate towards areas that have nice parks and the houses are cleaned up, like Collins, like Westboro. The housing values are very strong in these areas. And I think that, and I do believe, that neighborhood parks are part of that. So as the tax base is, as you take care of these parks, I actually think you'll see incidental help to the tax base, which means we draw more taxes. I certainly don't mind paying a little more tax where I'm at if I've got a decent neighborhood park. But to leave whole swaths of this city behind and not take care of these neighborhood parks, and I'm not saying all of them haven't been taken care of. I'm saying some of them haven't. We need to get caught up. It's in our master plan. This body voted for that. This body voted for the contract that said we will maintain our parks, we will maintain and upgrade equipment. It's all very clear. Does it take as much money as Tim's talking? I'm willing to look at smaller numbers, but we have got to have a consistent line item in CIP that we are replacing playground equipment for our neighborhoods. Okay, I've said enough. If you have questions of me, feel free to ask. I'd be happy to stand for questions, or otherwise, that's probably all I'll say on this one.
Joe, I'd argue that we don't take care of our parks. I think we do a good job taking care of our parks,
Okay.
maintaining things. But this capital line item here is for doing exactly what you're talking about. We're going to take 7 or 8 parks, bring them up to speed, do what needs to be done. Yeah, there's always little things on parks or maybe on trails that need to be fixed, but, you know, we hammer away at those. I don't care if you only had 2 parks. There'd always be some maintenance that needs to be done somewhere. You know, I think we're handling it very well. I think we're doing a good job on maintaining our parks and
Okay, well, I'd like to speak to that. I didn't come down here to argue with the commissioners. I came down here to simply make the case we need more money. So it could be
Okay.
this. If you vote for that, I'm happy. But I'm telling you what I've seen over 4 years, and I took a lot of pictures. And some of that has been fixed, and I'm glad. But it just seems like advisory had to fight an uphill battle to get maintenance for our parks. And hopefully that's stopped. Hopefully we've got new players up here, and we're going to see that maintenance come in, and we're going to see those upgrades. So, yeah, I agree we've made some steps.
Joe, you said earlier you fought for consolidation of parks for
I did.
for savings. Have you seen a savings in tax dollars?
You know, that's a good question. I saw some savings on mowing of lawns because we privatized. I have not seen, well, it's kind of hard to judge savings when the money was just simply taken away. I think we took $5 million out of the budget. So was that a savings or was that a cut?
Did city taxes go down?
They did not. And unfortunately, I wasn't part of that body, so I had no control. But guess what? I do speak at the budgets, and I do give them ways to save money, and once in a while they listen. Sometimes they don't. And all I can do is advise. And so your point is well taken. The city taxes did not go down. But nonetheless, we're stuck with Parks and Rec. This is our problem. And if we need to clear the deck on the other side, then that's up to the people to choose. But Aaron got a promotion. He came over here. So, anyway, thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
And thank you, Tim, for allowing me to jump in here. All right?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
having had taken the weekend to think about our capital improvement and capital outlay and new debt, I would like to propose that we as commissioners think that when we address the Parks and Recreation, we look at maybe allocating the $10 million of debt that we have already approved for Parks and Rec to go into deferred maintenance and upkeep and some of these projects, and maybe look at less into new projects, but trying to catch up with what we've already got, and then having that taken out in 2021, and then also allocating the debt service that we had set aside in 2020 for 2021, so that we would already have that debt service covered, so that we would be able to address the majority of the capital outlay projects that Parks and Rec has already listed, and using that new debt in 2021 for this for Parks and Rec. And it's just a thought.
Go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe our bond council told us it has to be used for new Parks and Rec capital expenditures. That we could not use it for any deferred maintenance or anything. It had to be for new projects only.
All we would need to do, if I rely on our legal counsel, is to look at the terms of the bond, and then also if we do need to modify any of those terms to increase. But we did leave it very open for Parks and Rec.
We did leave it very open, but the majority of that was for Family Park and for some trail, Deer Creek Trail. And I know it was written vaguely and loosely, so it could be used for other things, but I'm still going to stick with its original intent.
I mean, otherwise, we don't have the ability to address any of these needs. We don't have, unless we're going to cut departments, and we are already going into a tight budget cycle as it is.
Well, I mean, obviously, we're not gonna come up with $1.4 million a year for the next 5 years. I mean, we've got $2 million of capital on the CIP. That's 70% of all capital expenditures. It's just not possible to do that. And we could do a lesser amount. We could also, as Betty suggested last week, I believe, maybe you said it, is to take some money out of contingency.
Right.
And put it into CIP and decrease our contingency amount. So, I mean, that's a possibility as well. But I don't think that gets us enough to, give everything to everybody. I mean, we're already over the 2 million based on our decisions that we made last week.
Right. And that's why, again, I suggested maybe we look at under new debt in 2021, allocating that new debt that we've already approved for Parks and Rec to get us to a spot to where we are behind, and that will at least get us closer to getting caught up.
Yeah, I see, and I think I have a hard time issuing debt for maintenance. I mean, I'm not taking out a loan to fix my car. I mean, if I take out a loan, it's to buy a new car. I mean, it's the same thing, in my opinion.
Where that will lead us to, though, is we will need to cut that money from somewhere, or we will leave it further unaddressed. I mean, we could just continue to go down the road and say, we'll get to it eventually, and a smaller problem becomes a bigger problem until it becomes a very costly replacement, much like, deferred maintenance on your home. Or we would allocate that from some other department. And it's a no-win situation any way you do it.
I know, I think that if we're gonna make this work, I don't think taking out debt to do it is the way to do it. I mean, we're not gonna bond pothole patches, for public works either. I mean, but I think if we wanna make a pledge to improve some parks, I think we need to find the money elsewhere.
Bond always requires us to have a lifespan of in excess of 10 years.
10 years.
And so anything that we would look at as far as that bonding goes, it has to have a lifespan in excess of 10 years. Before I came on as a commissioner, that prior commission had bonded light poles. That was something that I was very much opposed to. Those things, again, it has to have a long-term lifespan, and so if we're looking at, for example, renovations to community centers, those are things that will have a lifespan in excess of 10 years. And it's, again, just thoughts for the commission to consider.
I think it waters down the project we initially intended to do to, if we keep just taking that bond money, pretty soon we won't have anything left for the other park. And that was the original intent, so.
And again, I was opposed to that, and it also would allow us to look at having that spread out across the entire county as opposed to focused in on just one area.
The problem with that is that's one area that's been neglected for a long time, and
So,
they're due their park over there.
but at the same time, if we look at the areas that have parks that we're not taking care of, what message does that send? We can't take care of what we have, so let's go build something new?
I don't know that they're as bad as you think. We do a pretty good job maintaining.
We do a good job with what we have, but there's a lot of the parks that just need a lot of love.
There are a lot of streets that need
And
patching,
And I
but you
don't
don't quit building streets.
But we don't have anything to do with the city of Topeka or their streets. In the county, our public works does a pretty darn good job of taking care of county roads.
I'm just using as an example.
I'm just saying, our county roads are one of the best maintained in the state.
Yes,
Tim, last year, we received a grant, which is maybe also kind of considered coupon,
Sure.
to redo some playgrounds. How many playgrounds did we redo last year?
We did, with that particular project, we did 10. There's 11 total. We're still working on Hughes Park. There's a retaining wall there where that playground sits that needs to be rebuilt, but 11 total.
So we renovated 11 playgrounds last year.
We put in 11 new playgrounds last year.
And how much did that cost?
With that grant, it cost us $250,000.
So for $250,000, we did 11 playgrounds.
Correct.
And we're
That was just,
asking-
let me back up a second.
Okay.
That was just for the playgrounds themselves. That didn't include the safety surfacing, the curbing, and that sort of thing. So you're looking at least another couple, $200,000-300,000 probably on top of that. So by the time we were all said and done, I don't have those figures in front of me, you're probably looking at close to under $500,000.
But over the next 5 years, you're asking for $7 million.
You know, and I said earlier that that was an arbitrary number. It really wasn't arbitrary. I think that was based on the figures that we had that calculated our deferred maintenance needs, and then what we had done to this point, and then that averaged out what was remaining.
So what are the odds of us being able to obtain a similar pricing arrangement if we wanted to do another several parks?
I think they're fairly good.
make a good point.
The only drawback to that, and I will say, and I'm not opposed to doing it, the only drawback to that, and you mentioned it, you kind of alluded to, it was a grant or sort of a coupon. You were, by the nature of that grant, you were required to buy that equipment from that vendor, and there were stipulations on what that equipment was. So you essentially got kind of a cookie cutter playground, and I'm not cutting it down at all. I think they look great and they've been a great addition, but you're getting the same playground in every park. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, especially in our situation where we're a little behind. But it's probably not how we would handle it if we were doing it otherwise.
I don't have a problem with that. I've done that in the past, used the
Yeah.
same design for 3 different parks.
Yeah.
They're neighborhood parks, so you generally don't have kids from that neighborhood going over to other neighborhoods.
Right,
so.
it just takes away a little bit of the uniqueness. But again, I think for the bang you get for your buck, it's
Yeah,
worth it. So.
So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes,
On number 36, the girls softball complex, it's 52 on projects. Line 36 on the screen. The $1.2 million for girls softball complex, is that to bring up the girls complex so that we would have parity with the boys complex on the Bettis?
Well, we already have a project in place that we're holding on that you approved last year to do some turf and some additional improvements there. This, if I remember right, is a new restroom facility, shade structures, a new gate, a new area where people would come in and out. So, yeah, I believe that it would be another step towards equality.
I mean, I've heard a lot of complaints about the restroom facilities and lack of restroom facilities at the girls softball.
Yeah.
And we do have quite a bit of tournaments and people that come in for that. So that would be, again, something new, and again, advocating if we were going to take out debt, which this commission has talked about taking out debt, having that allocated for that project.
But that is under debt. I mean, it's on the CIP, it's under new debt in 2022.
But we're not taking out, but this, as part of the $10 million that we've already allocated for that.
Again, I think we'd have to consult with our bond counsel before making any decisions on that.
Well, and I will just make the comment, we have not issued that debt. So it can be changed in any way that you would want. The only thing, the resolution that was passed before gave us the authority to go ahead and move forward with that. None of that debt has been issued at this point.
And so at the time of issuance, then it would be for what it specifically is for. And so Betty, would that be a very heavy undertaking? It's when we actually take out the debt, listing it for what specific purpose?
No, it might need, the resolution may need to be tweaked and come back to you, but I see it as that would be what would be needed.
Okay.
all right.
So, if I may, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, I'm looking at the totals, and right now we're 25,000 over our 2 million
For 2021,
for
yes.
2021.
Yes.
And then we still have several other things that we need to talk about besides this. So
Yes.
maybe, could we just come back to this at some point? To the Parks and Rec? I mean,
During the budgetary process, we could, as we look at our contingency fund, looking at increasing the capital outlay to address additional projects that we may have. So we could pass this as we have it here, and then when we get to the budget, look at making further adjustments.
Yes, or you can do it the other way. You can increase the amount here, and then that would be your starting point for capital outlay when you get to the budget. Because otherwise, if you pass it as it is here, and then you want to add to it, you would have to come back to the capital improvement plan to make increases to this. Does that
It does.
make sense? Okay.
Out of our capital improvement plan, the only thing that I would really look at is funding the courthouse steam trap, because again, that is original to the building, 1965. That's something that would be able to repay itself in cost savings over a couple of years. And so having that added in, and then looking at reducing our contingency, that is a preemptive measure that will save us money in the long run.
Yeah.
And so I
You would move to add that?
add that to 2021, understanding that we would be reducing our contingency funds when we come to it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a necessary step.
That's not bad.
That's a motion.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. So we'll add that 75,000.
Also, on Project 94, the DOC Annex, I would add that as a motion for the 30,000 for year 2021, recognizing that we do need to address the security out at the North Annex.
I am,
No, excuse me, this
DOC
is.
Annex, I'm
DOC
sorry.
Annex.
I misspoke.
my question on that, and I think Eve was here, and I know we may have talked about this, and I just don't remember, why is it 30,000 in the first year and 75 in the second?
Eve is
Does
coming,
anybody
she's
else
going to
remember that?
address it.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I know we said we didn't have any questions for you, and then I came up with one.
On the DOC Annex security.
So my question was, why is it 30,000 in the first year and 75 in the second? What's the difference there?
Eve Kendall, Department of Corrections. The first 30,000 is for a more complete study of what we actually need for the upgrade, because it's it's to include the locking mechanisms along with the camera system and tying them into our current system at the main jail. So as technology changes, we want to make sure that we are getting what we actually need instead of what we think we need. So that's a comprehensive study of what we need as far as the equipment and the wiring and the technology. And then the second year is for the actual implementation of the system itself.
Would that study include everything we would need to implement it then? I mean, if there be design?
Yes, sir, it's more of like a design
Specification.
build kind of thing, because right now we have two different systems running. One is just for the annex, and it doesn't tie into the main jail. And what we're trying to do is make it all one complete system so that in emergencies and everything, the systems will actually talk to each other. And right now, they don't.
Okay. All right.
I just want to add something. We've worked on the courthouse surveillance system and completely upgraded that, and we want to eventually get to where all of the security systems talk to each other. We have money left in the courthouse security system project that we could possibly allocate to this. Do you remember how much? But it certainly would cover the 30,000 for the first year.
Okay.
So that's just a suggestion that we might be able
All
to
right.
use those funds for this.
Well, and that's great. If we can do that, that'd be fantastic.
be good.
I worry that the 75,000 is the problem, though, because when we look at 2022, so for 2021, we're $25,000 over. 2022, we're $653,000 over already. Where are we going to come up with another 75,000? We're talking about taking $500,000 from contingency. We're already out of that money, too.
And we may have enough to cover that, too, in this. I think we do. I believe we have over the 105,000 left in that. 150? She's thinking 150? I believe we have enough left in that to cover all of this for both years.
Okay.
Then we could,
So we wouldn't need to do anything about it then today,
So, yeah.
would we,
theoretically. Yeah.
So we could just take this off of the CIP, and then we could bring to you a request to use those remaining funds for this.
I would withdraw my motion.
okay, do we need a motion to take it out?
No,
Okay, all right, let's take it
as
out.
long as that's okay with you.
What about reducing park renovations. Maybe we could make up a little room there. Where are we at on numbers now?
$100,000 over our original 2 million.
Yeah.
We also need to talk about the sheriff's fleet refresh
You're
at some
right.
point again, too.
On the sheriff's fleet, and again, in talking with Director Griner, we did not make any adjustments last year to the sheriff's budget, and so maybe have some feedback from the sheriff as to whether, what he would be able to do within his current budget after looking at the salary increases. And I think, Betty, I mean, that is correct, we did not make any
Yes.
adjustments to the sheriff's.
Last year was the first year that any sheriff's vehicles were paid out of capital outlay. Before that, they were always paid out of his budget. So last year, $250,000 was given, or was paid for sheriff's vehicles out of capital outlay. His budget for 2020 was not adjusted down for the amount of the vehicles that were paid out of capital outlay. So in effect, if the vehicles were paid out of capital outlay, he actually got an increase in operating budget by that $250,000. So I think that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
And why did we do that? Why did we start paying for them out of capital then?
It was just, he made a capital outlay request and it was approved.
Approved? Okay. All right.
So perhaps, I mean, before we take any action on that item, maybe getting some feedback from the sheriff's office as to their 2021 budget after they look at their increases to salary, what they would have remaining, and what they would be able to fund within their department as to what we would need to maybe address through capital outlay.
I think that would be,
I think there's a representative from the sheriff's office here.
Steve Rush, Shawnee County Sheriff. Just been on board with them for about a month and a half, taking Lorna's position. Just the little bit of information that I know there's some questions about the federal forfeiture. We cannot spend that money on fleet vehicles. So the request for $335,000 is for 10 Dodge Durangos, as that's an annual fleet replacement. So just to touch base on that. As far as salaries, again, we're operating at 90% on salaries, and so that leaves us about $2 million for operating on the budget. So if we don't get that replaced on CIP, that $335,000 is cutting into the $2 million of the operating budget. So just some information that I had.
maybe we should discuss that with Brian or the sheriff to see what that 2 million, what all that entails.
And again, a lot of that's contractual contracts that we already have set up. Our current contracts are set up at about $550,000 on our operating budget, so.
So you have $1.5 million unallocated?
Well, it's allocated, but a big chunk of that's the contractual agreements, whether it's IT, body cams, communications, so. So we operate on a very slim budget going into it, so.
So, I show your budget request is up about 1.2 million over last year. Is that all salary then?
Most of it, because I think at our budget hearing, last year, we were operating 90% was salary, and that jumped up to 91%, so. And I think Major Hubler mentioned a little bit that we do have a big chunk that's possible for retirement. So we do have a lot of older staff that have the potential for retirement. So if some of those do happen to come off of it, obviously the wage pie piece would shrink down a little bit more, so.
Any other questions, the sheriff's department?
Well, I guess I have a question. I don't know if it's for you necessarily.
Sure.
Since you weren't here.
Right.
I guess, since I wasn't here either, perhaps somebody who was could tell me, what was the conversation regarding the $250,000 in CIP for vehicle fleet replacement last year in budget talks? I mean, was that intended to be a one-time thing, or was that intended to be ongoing for, perpetually?
I don't recall that it ever coming up as part of the budget discussion. The request was made for the vehicles, it was approved as part of the capital outlay, and I don't recall that that discussion came up when you were making budget, when the board was making budget decisions. I don't remember it being addressed in public as part of this budget
The only thing that
discussion.
we had discussed was moving towards a normalized spending for the sheriff's office, so they would be in the same transparent process as everybody else. As an elected official, once we pass a budget, they can use their money in any way they see fit, whereas as a capital outlay, we would have it specifically set aside for a set project. So that was part of the process in putting the sheriff's vehicles into the capital outlay, so that we would know that that specifically was set aside for that amount. That was my recollection from our discussion last year. But at the same time, when we came to the end of the budget, we didn't make any reduction of the sheriff's budget for the amount that we had put into capital outlay.
And I guess I look at this and I think, okay, so we've got not only the sheriff's department, but we also approved trucks and things for Public Works and Parks and Rec, and I mean, we're getting a new bucket truck and that kind of thing. And I know that the CIP process is relatively new for the county, isn't
Well,
it? So, I mean,
It's more formalized than it used to. We've always had a process, but we've really just, in the past, we looked at 1 year, the next year. I mean, just 1 year out, we did not look at the 5 years, and we did not cover all the other funds that were included in the county also. So it's a more formalized process that
Okay.
we now have.
so are these things that used to be just included in departmental budgets that are now being
Public-
separated out?
Public Works has always been included in as far as long as I've been here, and as far as I know, Public Works has always been included in a capital outlay. Some other, I'm trying to think, other equipment has been, the sheriff's vehicles were not, but others were. So I don't know how far back that goes. That goes back before my time.
Well, I can
And I
just,
don't know why the difference.
I can just envision a scenario in which every year that this just becomes a vehicle purchasing rather than capital improvements. And, if every department I could see just putting all their vehicle purchases in here, or leases or whatever, and we're not gonna have any money
Well,
for anything else at some
And I
point.
think in the distinction somewhat with Public Works is this is equipment rather than a vehicle. Well, you know what I mean. It's like the large equipment, like the large dump trucks or and I don't know, Kurt might be able to address that more than me, but, and there may be some trucks and things on there too, but generally, I think it was more, the capital improvement items were more the large equipment items instead of just a truck or a car. In theory. Now, that doesn't mean that someone can't make a request. Any request we receive from the departments, we include, in the requests that come to you.
Steve, these 10 Durangos, are this something that could be leased, or are they
I
always?
think we kind of discussed that at the budget hearing, the department budget hearing, and Hubler was not opposed to looking into leases. Now that sounds like we would be able to, or at least they kind of offer that program now where you can lease police vehicles, so.
Well,
And I wasn't in place for kind of these budget requests and the capital improvement requests, but we could certainly go back. So you're looking at one vehicle for $33,500 for Durango, which is the cheapest I think Hubler said they found. So I don't know if they're opposed to maybe looking at 5, or if he is fully requesting the 10. So I think he'd be happy with whatever he could get, so.
And I think we did talk a little bit at the budget hearing that when we first started the lease program with Enterprise, they did not include pursuit vehicles, and they did not have those. We now find out that they now do include in their leases pursuit vehicles. Now, I don't know that it's gone any further than that to really investigate what they have and the cost of those. But they are now available, and they have been for a couple of years now.
and what is that vehicle? Is it the same as what we use? Is it
See, I don't know. Generally speaking, they have a variety of different vehicles that you can lease through them. It's not just one vehicle here and there. They have different brands, they have, different models, all of that. Now, as far as pursuit vehicles, I do not know exactly the details.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if you do lease vehicles, we still have the striping is on us for the detailing that has to be done. That's,
There again, I would think so, but I don't know that for sure.
I would think so.
I would think so. Does Parks and Rec knows how, it would be the same as for Parks and Rec? You
Okay.
do that?
Yes. Tim Laurent, Parks and Rec. Yeah, the logos and things that we put on our trucks through the lease are on us.
Okay.
Now, it is my understanding, though, that you could get the cages and that, kind of things. That could be part of the lease. I don't know what you call them, but that could be part of the lease, but not the logos and that kind of thing.
It might be interesting to see what it would cost to lease 10 of these vehicles as opposed to buying them.
Well, and I would like to, and this is talking in theory, but I would like for us to get, in theory, I would like for us long-term, our goal to look at getting most all of our vehicles on a lease program. That way, we have a set amount every year that is included in our budgets, and so we can maintain those vehicles and can always be turning them over at the best possible time. That's my long-term goal.
And I think that's very admirable for a long-term hypothetical goal.
Yes. Doesn't help us today, but that's
Yeah.
my long-term goal.
All right.
Well, I think what I would probably say is maybe if we cut that in half and do 5 vehicles and then look at exploring the option of leasing from now on. Moving forward, I think it'd be good if we could run that, because, I think we said in the budget discussion, this is something that, this is not gonna go away. Buying 10 vehicles, we're still gonna have to buy 10 more next year. And, it's just gonna continually go on. And so, you guys put tons of miles on your vehicles. I think a leasing program makes way more sense for law enforcement than it does for any other department. Maybe solid waste too, but, I think leasing is probably the way to go for the future. So maybe we just approve half of this year with the intent of starting a leasing program next year, if we can. Or at least getting the details on it. Right now, we're just speaking in hypotheticals, and
Right, relatively new, sure.
so I guess I would make that motion to do, what would half of that be?
125.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
not exactly.
No,
but-
his request is 335.
Yeah, so it'd be 160,
162.5.
750 or something. Let's
Zero.
just do an even 165 for that.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye.
Can,
Oh, yes,
before we vote, what about the other out years? 22 through 24? Take the, are you saying take those off now?
They were-
if we're looking at moving into leases,
Okay, I just wanted,
I mean,
I just
I don't
wanted it
know
to
what
be
a
part
lease-
of the vote,
I don't
whichever
know
way
what
you're
the leasing
going.
program costs. I mean, I would assume that would cut that cost by quite a bit, but.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Well,
tell
and-
me, what
and-
do you think we ought to do with that?
Well,
We
and,
lower-
and to me, what you would do is take that completely off at this point in time, and then next year, we would add it in as a request for the lease amount.
okay,
Okay, well, let's do that then. Let's take those off, and then we'll come back next year and redo it.
okay.
So is that the motion?
That's
The
the
motion
motion.
is to take-
I amend my motion.
All right. Motion, and I'll second that. Motion's been, are we getting it? Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
We got it.
Okay, and then the next one below that is the uplift and the striping of new vehicles. So would that be
That'd
cut
be-
in half also?
Cut in half.
And
That was for 8 vehicles.
That was for 8 vehicles?
8 vehicles, yeah.
8 vehicles.
excuse me, Commissioner, but Betty, was
We
there
were
another
gonna buy
conversation?
10, but we're only gonna strike 8 of them.
Was there another conversation the sheriff had that the vehicles they were getting, and maybe Steve, that they were, on Thursday, that they were, most of them would not require because they were not required, is that, because he
Yeah.
said something about that they wouldn't need.
Not all of
That
them.
that they
Not
wouldn't
all
all
of them
need it,
need
so.
it.
Right, a
Some of
couple of
them
them are for detectives and
I see.
undercover and such. so
Undercover,
they
yeah,
don't
that's
need
a
to
his reference, was
update and
undercover.
stripe, so.
So it would be, okay, so if it's for 8, so it's 9,000 a vehicle? If this is for 8 vehicles?
Yeah, 9,000 a vehicle for 8 vehicles.
Okay. So if you're doing 5 vehicles,
That's 45,000.
that would go down to 45,000?
All right.
Is that right?
Um,
Does that make sense?
I'll move that we reduce that down to 45,000.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Mr. Chair, can we look at
Yes.
the bottom line to see how much we've gone
Yeah.
over the 2 million?
310,000.
So if we are going to reduce our contingency from 1 million to 500,000,
Mhm.
there's,
Then you'd have 190,000 left for 2021.
I would move to put the 190,000 into park refresh renovations.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Okay.
Then what do you want to do on the other years? Do you want to go through each one of these remaining projects? Do you want to just leave it as it is for our plan at this point? We also have new debt that has been proposed for 2022 for the softball complex and Dornwood Park, and then for 2023 for Helen Hawker.
I don't know that we need to get into all those at this point.
I think we need to leave those as is. We don't know.
Okay.
With COVID right now, there's a lot of our planning that we should look at how it will be impacted by the virus.
So, it's just a good planning tool at this point. I
Right.
don't know that we need to do any,
Oh, there is.
I didn't hear.
Parks, and we would have courthouse lighting upgrade to LED, the parking lot mill and overlay, curb and gutter replacements, roofing repairs, the exterior for Meaner Conference Center, the courthouse.
Right.
Those were all listed as being low, looking at the end of life within the next 5 years.
The campground renovation design services is the only one that's not low. It's a normal, and it's 50,000 for 2021.
And I believe that Tim said he's already got some ideas of ways that he can
Right.
address that.
Yes.
Without
Might
needing to-
internally, might be able to do that internally.
Yeah, I don't think we need to pay for that.
And so I would move that we not do anything with the other items at this point since they are listed as low.
Okay. And if we go back down to the bottom. Okay, so my next question is, are you ready to approve this plan? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, was that on that, that was on the campground? What was your motion?
Low impact items.
Low
Low
impact,
impact.
My motion is nothing for the campground service and nothing for items, projects 98, 100, 102, and 103
For any year or just for 21?
for 21.
Okay.
let me look at that real quick, just a second. Normal. That was parking lot. Okay, I can second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Okay, now do we need to approve the whole thing?
If you are ready to do so, yes. Now, what I would like to do is this will pretty much cement 2021. And when we get into the budget, our starting amount for the capital outlay on the budget would be the $2.5 million. The other out years would still be, this is our plan, but we would look at that again next year, and could be, tweaked one way or another when we come to those out years next year.
Okay.
So yes, if that's agreeable, then I think the next step would be for you to approve the
2021.
No, for all of the 5 years, for the capital outlay and the new debt. There again, this is just for the capital improvement plan. It's just a planning tool.
I would move that we approve the capital outlay plan.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. We
Very
will
good.
have this available on our website for the public to look at. Let's see, if you go to the audit finance website, there is a little link to the CIP.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Item 3, consent agenda.
Did you say?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'm sorry, let me.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 4, new business, A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have vouchers that total $992,936.96. The highlights out of that, the largest is our payroll, which was $654,214.65. Followed up with, under general, we have $61,503.22, of which the majority of that was for RSM US LLP, which was our 2019 audit services. Under detention facility, we have $74,066.84, of which the majority of that is Aramark food service for the inmates at the jail. Under Parks and Rec, we have $55,657.81, which was a variety of different projects throughout Parks and Rec. And finally, under allocations, $32,532.50 of that went to the Community Resources Council, or CRC, for the services they provide. I do not have any questions regarding the vouchers, would move for their approval.
Question? You said $992,936.96.
Oh, sorry, $992,993.96.
Thank you very much, sir.
I will second that.
We did
Motion-
write that.
Good catch, Cindy.
Very good.
Well, Chris caught that. I'm just
okay.
over here just
40
kind of.
cents. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I will move that we approve the correction orders.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B, Public Works. Number 1, consider approval of request to issue a request for qualifications for professional design services and cost estimates as necessary to replace the South Topeka Boulevard Bridge, excuse me, over the Wakarusa River, BSN 630, with funding from the 100%, with funding of 100% from the countywide half-cent sales tax for bridges 2017 through 2032.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. First of all, I want to thank you for approving our capital improvement plan last week, not to be confused with what you just approved, the capital outlay plan. So thank you again for that. As part of that 5-year capital improvement plan, in 2023, we would like to replace this Topeka Boulevard Bridge over the Wakarusa River. It's down near the South County line. It's maybe a third of a mile south of 93rd Street. Yes, we're getting a pretty good head start on it because this bridge is a pretty good sized structure. It's larger than what we normally see in Shawnee County. Nothing near the size of the Willard Bridge, but nevertheless, pretty good sized structure. We want to get a head start on this. Again, it's on South Topeka Boulevard. What's pushing the replacement on this is if we look at the underside of the deck, you see these cracks, these transverse cracks. The reason they're light colored is because salt migrates through the deck, and that's where the light color comes from. But these, in 2004, we overlaid. We completely removed maybe 1.5 inches of the deck surface and put an overlay on. That was in 2004. Typically, those have maybe a 10 to 15 year lifespan, which is coincidentally in 2020, we're at 16 years. In 2023, we'll be at almost 20 years. So it's time to really start thinking about replacing this bridge. It's of a design that, they're called cast-in-place concrete T-girders. And the top flange is part of the structural capacity of the bridge, and it makes repairing the deck somewhat difficult. Because again, the deck is part of the structural load-carrying capacity of the bridge. It's not like a steel girder bridge where you can completely remove the deck and create a new deck on top of the steel girders. So, again, we'd like to replace this bridge. We don't know if we're going to close South Topeka Boulevard during construction, or if we're going to build it on a shoe-fly detour, so to speak, or if we're going to build it on an offset alignment. That's one of the things we will look at with our consultant when they're brought on board through this RFQ process that we're requesting. I'm willing to take your questions, any that you might have.
Will this likely look like a steel girder type?
I'm guessing it'll end up being a girder bridge. I can't say if it's going to be steel or pre-stressed concrete, but I'm guessing it will be a girder bridge of some sort.
Kurt, prior to this construction project, is there any concerns with the structural capacity of it or anything?
Absolutely not. What we're trying to avoid here, in other words, I think what you're getting at here, and it's not an unsafe bridge.
Like, we don't need to have any weight restriction,
No.
additional weight?
It already is
restrictions or-
posted. It already has a reduced load rating or a weight restriction. But it's not unsafe. I'm sure it carries school bus traffic just fine. But what we're trying to avoid here going forward is we're trying to avoid a significant outlay of funds to repair the deck again. When you do deck repairs or any kind of significant maintenance on a structure, the law of diminishing returns applies. Again, we've already replaced or overlaid this deck one time. If we tried to do it again, it would be much more expensive and it would involve much more work. And again, I have to stress this. The top slab is part of the structural girder system, and it makes deck repairs that much more difficult. Anything else, Aaron?
Does this bridge carry any utilities, or is it?
If you look to the left of that picture, the extreme let's see here. If you look to the extreme left of that girder there, it looks to me like it's carrying a water line or utility conduit, but that is just a guess at this point.
We have a lot of flooding issues on that creek. Is
Uh-huh.
our capacity's fine underneath this?
Yeah, I'm sure this bridge is sized adequately. You know, the new bridge may be slightly different in length, but I don't think this bridge is causing any kind of upstream flooding. It's high up in the air. I think hydraulically, it's adequate.
I would, any other questions? I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item.
Item C, Health Department, number 1, consider approval of request to fill an immunizations communicable disease STD TB registered nurse position in the Clinical Services Division at an annual salary including benefits of $70,533 with funding from the 2020 and 2021 Health Department budgets, and to fill any position that becomes vacant as a result of filling this position.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Oaks from the Health Department. We do have a nurse retiring in our immunization program. She's been here for, I think, about 20 years, so a lot of knowledge going out the door with her. So we would like to go ahead and fill her position in this department. So it is a busy clinic area. It's going to get busier this week with immunization starting up, and I'll talk about that during administrative communications, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about this position.
Any questions?
Move for approval.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item C2, consider approval of request to create and fill an intermittent COVID-19 school liaison position at the Infectious Disease Division at a rate of $31.24 per hour to be funded by COVID-19 grants.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Oaks from the Health Department again. We have had great success during the pandemic with having a long-term care facility liaison. We had a nurse from our department who filled that role. She met weekly with the long-term care facilities. She helped them when they had cases, and I do think it's made a big difference in keeping those outbreaks to a minimum. So we'd like to use the same model with our schools, to have a school nurse, retired school nurse, fill this position and meet with the school nurses every week. We're already meeting with the superintendents weekly. We've been doing that since, I believe, April. So she along with Dr. Cooley, who we have contracted with to help with our health officer position, will be working with the school folks to help them when they do have cases, to help them determine who needs to be quarantined, what we can do with the classrooms, and all their questions they would have. So I think this is a good model. It's working very well in the long-term care facility world, so I would like to use it also in the school world. And this position will be funded by CARES Act funding and other COVID funding streams that we have been able to access. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about it.
So this is a part-time?
Part-time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
No. Nope.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Thank you.
Item C3, consider approval of request to advertise and fill an intermittent accountant 1 for COVID-19 response activities at a rate of $25.15 per hour to be funded by various COVID-19 funding sources.
Good morning, Commissioners. Edith Gaines, the Finance Officer with the Health Department. So this request also has to do with COVID-19 activities. As you know, the Health Department is the frontline workers in the COVID-19 response, and That does not just include nurses and emergency management, but it does also include the finance and administrative staff. So this position is requesting to add an intermittent accountant one to create and advertise and fill this position. So this position would be responsible for COVID-19 time tracking, expense tracking for incident command. It would be responsible for budgeting and reporting and with purchasing activities. As you know, we've had an increase in the purchase of PPE supplies, testing supplies, and then telecommunications for staff to work at home. So this request is for $28,850. That would be funded through the CARES Act and the Paycheck Protection Program funding sources. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about this position.
And once again, this is a part-time position?
Yes, sir.
This is not
Yes.
full-time. Okay. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item C4, consider approval of request to submit the Kansas Department of Health and Environment Epidemiology and Laboratory Capacity Cooperative Agreement application to assist with COVID-19 response and recovery efforts for a total request of $502,004.
Okay. Edith Gaines, Finance Officer with the Health Department again. Sorry. So this request is for a grant from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment it's for salaries and overtime and benefits for COVID-19 response activities. Sorry. So this request is for $502,004. And I just submitted you an updated budget because late last week, KDHE had submitted guidance clarifying what the expenses could be eligible for. And so I had just moved expenses from supplies, and now everything is just salaries and overtime. So this is a 2-year grant project period. Only health departments are eligible to receive this particular funding. So these salaries would be for our new infectious disease division, who would be focusing on case identification, contract tracing, and testing for COVID-19. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about this request.
Any questions?
No. I'll move to approve. Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Edith.
Thank you.
Next.
Item D, Court Administration. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-263-2020, an online services agreement between the 3rd Judicial District and Voyance Language Services, LLC, to provide foreign language and sign language interpretation services remotely at a base rate of 99 cents per minute with a $25 minimum monthly charge with funding from the departmental budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Welch, Court Administration, 3rd Judicial District. What we have here is Voyance Language Services, as Cindy explained, provides remote interpretation services for over 200 languages. The base rate is 99 cents a minute with a $25 minimum charge. We have been testing this, and it has worked very well. There are some languages that the rates are higher than 99 cents a minute. But given the fact that we have such a difficult time here in Shawnee County finding foreign language interpreters, it's proving to be very helpful.
Any questions?
Nope, move for approval.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thanks, Lee.
Item D2, consider approval of request to purchase plexiglass barriers through Binswanger glass to be installed on top of the cubicle walls in the clerk of the district court office to protect employees from the potential spread of the coronavirus and COVID-19 at a cost of $11,061 to $14,257 with funding from the 2020 court budget and to be submitted to CARES funding through Shawnee County.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Welch, Court Administrator, Shawnee County. This is a project that I've been working with Ben Swanger on for some time now. This will be similar in design and feature to what Larry Ma has put in place in the motor vehicle department. The initial numbers that I was provided were between $11,000 and $14,000. It'll still be under 15, but there was a miscalculation on Ben Swanger's part for a partition that was needed, so it'll be closer to $14,500. The reason it's a little higher is because we opted to go with a no-screw variety, so there won't be any damage to any of the existing surfaces or furnishings in the court offices. And this is only for the district court office, which is room 209. Any questions?
Comments?
Move for approval.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item E, facilities maintenance. Number 1, consider approval of request to utilize 2020 contingency funds to pay Samco Inc. $7,574.72 for HVAC system repairs at Manor Conference Center, 1720 Southwest Western Avenue.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Kroll, Facilities Maintenance Director. This is a contingency fund request for the Manor Conference Center. We had some expenses come up there while the place was vacant. We really went through it pretty deeply, found some of the air handling, some of the air conditioning equipment that needed some long overdue repairs and hadn't budgeted for it, so asking for contingency funds.
Any questions? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item F, Commission. Number 1, consider reappointment of Mike Pettit to the Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council for a 3-year term beginning October 1, 2020, and ending September 30, 2023.
Commissioners, Matt Pettit is asked to be reappointed to the Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging. Sounds like he's doing a good job there, so I would move to approve that.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
All right, at this time, we'll allow people from the public to speak, and also people from the various departments give announcements.
Good morning,
Looks like
Commissioners.
Linda has an announcement.
I do. Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Oaks from the Health Department. I'm very pleased to announce that we are going to start giving immunizations again this week. So we are doing these by appointment only, and the phone number is 251-5700. That's 251-5700. We are only going to be vaccinating children at this time unless it's rabies, and we've been doing rabies shots all along. And so there are some requirements. We are only going to be doing the vaccine for children, eligible children at this time, so it's uninsured, children with Medicaid, with the Children's Health Insurance Program, and American Indian or Alaska Native. Any children that fall under the VFC requirements can be vaccinated. So we encourage parents to please call 251-5700. We will take your information over the phone, give you instructions on how to come in, and looking forward to vaccinating children again, getting ready for school.
How are we getting the word out that we're doing this? Is there-
A media release will be going out very quickly after this announcement.
Okay.
So people can start calling today.
Thank you.
And we'll start with, we have some limited appointments, but we'll expand appointments very quickly as we go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good morning, Commissioners. Just so remind the public and yourselves that, not this morning because the weather didn't cooperate, but tomorrow morning, we're going to be starting work on our mill and inlay on Southeast 45th between Stubbs Road and the county line. There are message boards up alerting the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Commissioner Mays, you been up to anything?
Nope, nothing from me.
Commissioner Cook?
Nothing for today.
The only thing I attended the 70th anniversary of the Korean War, Gage Park this weekend. We had a pretty good turnout of people there, and it was a good event, so. But that's it for me. We have no need for an executive session today, so we are adjourned.